Atlantic Conference was a conference that was called upon by US President Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Churchill on 14 August 1941 at Newfoundland in Atlantic Ocean. And after the conference, at the end of the conference, a charter was signed that's called the Atlantic Charter. And this conference provided a broad statement, or this charter provided a broad statement of US and British war aims. The first see the reasons for calling this conference. The major reason for calling this conference was the geopolitical situation in Europe by mid 1941. By mid 1941, although Great Britain had been spared from German invasion in the fall of 1940, and with the passage of Lend-Lease Act in March 1941, UK was assured of US material support by the end of May. And the Germans, but the Germans had inflicted humiliating defeat upon British, Greek, and Yugoslav forces in Balkans, and the Germans were threatening to overrun Egypt and close Suez Canal, thereby restricting British access to its possessions in India. And when Germans invaded USSR on 22nd June 1941, a few policymakers in London or Washington believed that Swedes would be able to resist the Nazi onslaught for more than 6 weeks. While the British government focused its efforts on dealing with Germans in Europe, they were also concerned that Japan might take the advantage to seize British, French, and Dutch territories in Southeast Asia, since UK was involved in checking Germans in Europe, and the UK was apprehended that while they were busy in checking Germans in Europe, Japan will take the advantage of the situation and take control of Southeast Asian possessions. So this was the geopolitical situation in Europe. Although UK was spared, but they were apprehended from Germans and Japanese because of multiple reasons. There were reasons that they could overrun Egypt and stop the Suez Canal, and there was the danger from Japan on Southeast Asia, especially by mid 19 by the end of 1941. They had the Japanese had captured Singapore as well, and they were trying to come or land on Burma. So this was the political situation, uh, and the conference was though not successful, but still they had issued a charter which was really important and which is really important. And the charter had eight major points. There are 5 points that I have mentioned here. They are the main points. And according to the charter, the United States and Great Britain would be committed to support in the post-war world, and both countries agreed to seek not to seek territorial expansion, and they both countries agreed to seek the liberalization of international trade and to establish freedom of seas and international labor, economic, and welfare standards. And the most important point in this charter was that both the United States and Great Britain were committed to supporting the restoration of self-governments for all countries that had been occupied during the war, and allowing all people to choose their own form of government. This was a signal given to the colonies, especially the British colonies, where the people were already fighting a war of independence or war for independence. So this was a good sign for them that, or yeah, this was a good sign for them that they might be able to get independence, since now UK was signatory of a charter, and according to the charter UK was committed to support the restoration of self-government in all countries. While the meeting was successful in drafting aims, it failed to produce the desired results for either leader, for both of them, for Roosevelt as well as for Churchill, because they came to the conference with certain objectives in their minds, and they were unable to get those goals, their objectives, what they had presumed that they will get that things or this thing or that thing from the conference, and both of them were failed to get their objectives. For Roosevelt, Roosevelt had hoped that the charter might encourage the American people to back US intervention in World War II on behalf of allies. However, public opinion remained adamantly opposed to such policy. The public opinion remained against the US involvement in Second World War, although Roosevelt had hoped that this charter might encourage the American people to uh, to involve in the Second World War. And Roosevelt wanted British government to affirm publicly that it was not involved in any secret treaties, particularly ones concerning territorial questions, such as those concluded by allies during the First World War concerning the division of enemy territory at the war's end. And Roosevelt was failed uh, in this objective as well. Roosevelt was thinking that after the conference or after the charter, he would be able to persuade Churchill to publicly affirm that it was not involved in any secret treaties, but Churchill didn't publicly affirm such things. And Roosevelt also wished to arrange the terms by which the Great Britain would repay the United States for its Lend-Lease assistance, and Roosevelt was failed to achieve that. And Roosevelt also wanted the British to pay compensation for the Lend-Lease by dismantling their system of imperial preference. And Roosevelt was unable to do so because Churchill didn't dismantle the imperial preferences because of the pressure from the protectionist group in Conservative Party. The imperial preference was introduced by UK in 1930s because of the Great Depression. This system was introduced so that the colonies might trade with each other and they would be able to control the depression. And Roosevelt was unable to motivate Churchill to remove such a system of imperial preferences. And Churchill was also failed to get the desired result because Churchill's primary goal in attending the Atlantic Conference was to get Americans into the war, bearing that he hoped that the United States would increase its amount of military aid to Great Britain and the US will warn Japan against taking any aggressive action in Pacific, and nothing could happen. Neither America get into the war after the conference, nor America increase its military aid to Great Britain, and the US didn't warn Japan uh, for taking any aggressive action in Pacific as well. So the Churchill was also unable to get the desired results. Although the conference was not successful because both Roosevelt and Churchill had failed to get their desired objectives, and but still this conference is enormously significant because of its charter. First, it publicly affirmed the sense of solidarity between US and Britain against Axis aggression. That this charter shows that US and Britain are on same page against Axis aggression. And this charter laid out the President Roosevelt's Wilsonian vision for post-war world, one that would be characterized by free exchange rate, self-determination, disarmament, and collective security. And this charter laid out a base for Wilsonian vision of post-war world. And the charter ultimately did serve as inspiration for colonial subjects throughout the Third World, from Algeria to Vietnam, as they fought for independence. Since, according to the charter, UK was committed to encourage the self-government in different countries, and different colonies were fighting for independence. They were struggling to make their own self-government, and once UK became the signatory to a charter that assures the self-government, this was a good sign for the third world, especially the especially the British colonies. Thank you for joining. Take care. Goodbye.